Now, I know some of you guys are not fond of landlords, right? I mean, the moment you think of the term landlord, you think of somebody who just owns a bunch of properties and just making a bunch of money just sitting on their butt. I know people don't like landlords, but here's the thing. There's a big difference between your average mom and pop landlord that owns like maybe an extra floor, maybe an extra condo, or like maybe a second house versus like your big landlords like Blackstone, BlackRock, who owns like whole communities of buildings, right? So right now, Seattle is facing a massive set of problems. Now, if you're wanting to go to Seattle and cop some real estate, I mean, seriously, think about it, right? You know, Seattle has some of the highest rents, and they also have some of the coolest tech companies. And all things considered, their vacancy rate is pretty terrible at almost 12%, but it's way better than San Francisco's like almost 40% vacancies. If you look at Seattle, there's a lot of condos and a lot of properties that go for a lot of money, but you're actually seeing a huge inflow of units from smaller landlords for a reason. And with these units flooding on the markets, with people just so mad right now, we're seeing Seattle home prices going to drop even further because a lot of these landlords, if they can't rent their units out, or if they rent their units out and it's like a massive headache, they're just going to sell it. In fact, some landlords are willing to sell at a below market value just to get rid of the property because property taxes are high, and each month you hold on to the property without rent payments, you don't want the property at all. So what's going on is the Seattle laws are just a nightmare. I don't know why. What's up with these left-leaning cities? They absolutely screw over the business owners and landlords. But let me tell you guys the situation here. Like I said before, these aren't like massive landlords. They're just small-time investors, people who do pretty well in life, who own maybe one or two homes, you know, or maybe owns like a townhouse. They're renting out like the bottom floor and they're living on the top floor. These are landlords that we're talking about. They're ditching Seattle. So we're seeing dozens and dozens of landlords coming out to complain because you're seeing a lot of people just selling their units and fleeing the city. You're seeing at least 600 members in a Facebook group just for small landlords, and they all say the same thing. There's 17 new laws implemented by local lawmakers to pretty much target evil corporate landlords. Of course, those guys have a lot of cash, and they have a lot of cash for courts and stuff like that. But like I said before, if you're in Seattle and rent out like a home and the tenant doesn't pay, you're gonna take like a year and like almost $20,000 in legal fees just to evict the problem. Okay, like the person, they're not paying rent, well, too bad. It's the landlord that's going to take the massive hit, and usually the tenant doesn't get any sort of violation. Seattle's one of those cities who are not in the middle, but they're super leaning towards the tenant. Now, it's really unique to me because if you go overseas, like if you go to like Shanghai, go to Tokyo, go to Singapore, for example, they actually stand on the side with the landlord or in the middle, because over there it's like, okay, if you don't pay rent, you can't really live in the situation. Now, I'll get it. I could go really political and all sorts of different stuff, but just keep in mind, a lot of these small homes owned by just one person, or that person owns like 2 extra floors on top of their building, they're renting it out. These are guys who are taking massive losses, and they are actually flooding the market. These are the people who are flooding the market in Seattle with all of these homes, and it's causing this massive listing crash. We're seeing so many listings in Seattle, okay, but with interest rates being super high and with Seattle still finishing up the initial set of homes that were started beforehand, it's very hard for prices to go. In fact, prices are still dropping in Seattle because of so many people shoving these homes down people's throats. Like I said before, people in Seattle, a lot of them just buy one home. They know that the rental market is so bad that there's no point of buying a second home and renting it out. Because if you do meet the bad tenant who doesn't pay rent, well, too bad. It takes a year, which is like tens of thousands of dollars of rental income being gone, and then 20 G's in legal fees. Not great at all. And when you look at this, you're seeing a lot of landlords, the small ones, are exiting Seattle, or they thought about buying another property in Seattle. They think about it and they buy it somewhere else. And you're also seeing a lot of these owners selling their Airbnb units as well. And there's even some crazy stories, like people not paying rent, and then they rent out the home as an Airbnb to make like a side cash. And it takes like 1 or 2 years for them to be evicted. It's absolutely insane. I've never heard stories like this. And this is why you don't see Seattle real estate being talked about as much. Because even if you have money to, let's say, buy a second unit to rent out, well, good luck, right? What if you met like the bad tenant? You're not going to get any money. I mean, some of these units are absolutely lovely. Like this one, 570 square feet. You got this really, really nice outdoor space. I mean, this is a pretty OG looking unit, honestly. This is a beautiful unit, but people would not buy this. This is why it's getting like fat price cuts. People can't buy it and rent it out because what if, right? What if you get like the bad tenant in town? It's going to be so bad for you. I mean, some of these units are really, really nice in Seattle. I mean, I've been to Seattle a couple of times. Fantastic city, honestly, guys. I know there's like a big homeless problem. There's like a drug crisis going on, but it's not as bad as San Francisco. Seattle is still on the top of my list in terms of American cities. I do like Seattle. Overall, the streets are pretty clean. North Seattle is pretty lit, and they don't really have that many like super bad neighborhoods. Seattle's still a pretty OG city. I like it. Okay, I don't care what you say. But like I said before, if I ever want to do real estate investing in this area, it's near impossible. And like I said before, if you don't have a lot of real estate transactions, you're not going to get a lot of money for the city. This is why a lot of these left-leaning cities are also getting a ton of businesses closing down, right? With a lot of these businesses closing down because of some of the homeless prices, with the homeless problem and housing prices, we're actually seeing less investment right now. We're seeing construction in certain areas of Seattle being halted. Seattle home prices tumbled from last year's high, and they're still tumbling. And look at this, right? The office vacancy for the Seattle area, okay, back in 2019 was about 5%. And just a year ago, it was 10%. So it's pretty normal. You're recovering from the pandemic. Some people come back. And then people come back. They're like, hold on a second. Seattle isn't what it was before. I'm getting out. So they leave, and now vacancies are sitting at like 12.21%. So you do see that Seattle vacancy rate slowly going up in the office vacancy sector. And yeah, I mean, real estate is becoming complete doo-doo over here. We're also seeing a lot of layoffs as well, high interest rates, and Seattle real estate may actually go bust at this point. We're seeing just too many units from small landlords shoving these units down people's throats. And landlords, they don't want to be here either. So what's going to happen in Seattle, I don't really know. But like I said before, there needs to be certain laws. Let's say you have like 50 units. You're not a small landlord anymore. Maybe stricter laws should be applied. But if you're like a small landlord, okay, you have like less than 5 units being rented out, you shouldn't really be held to the same standard as some of the big corporate landlords. And I mean, this really just screws with the whole entire real estate dynamic. Obviously, you got to stand the tenants. I'm down, right? There's also a limit of how strict these laws are. Like, come on, man. When your tenant isn't paying rent and they're renting your unit out as an Airbnb to make money, I mean, I think anyone will probably like that feels super illegal and that tenant should be evicted and pay back all the Airbnb money. But of course, Seattle, I don't know, man. It's a great city, but sometimes some of these real estate and investing laws and business laws just doesn't really make that much sense. But let's see what happens. Seattle real estate, is still pretty pricey. Prices are not going down as fast as San Francisco. And like I said before, of all the American cities, I really like Miami. I like Las Vegas, and I really like Seattle. Despite Seattle having a lot of bad problems, it's still a pretty hot town with hot real estate. People still really, really like it. Thanks for watching, guys. Comment below, and see you guys later.